fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god!
Oh.
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get full!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV, to Silverstone Circuit in the UK, to the legacy layout of the Silverstone Circuit as it was in 2008. This is the Geodesic Omologato Championship, the third round of the 2021 season. We've already had races at Watkins Glen and the Nürburgring, and we saw the same winners at both races, but there's a fair chance we might see a brand new victor in either class today. I'm Reese Gardner, and joining me in the commentary box is David Haynes. David, it's time for Silverstone, a fast, flat circuit, and we're racing the 2008 layout to boot, so it has a couple of classic corners.
Yep, exactly. Held the Grand Prix on this layout for many a year, including some of my formative years, so the pit lane is a little bit different from the modern Grand Prix layout, but a lot of the corners are familiar, of course, with a bit of a difference around Abbey and other sections of the track. But of course, the big question this week, this round, is who is going to stop Dakota Fripp and Marcus Deck? Who can break their strangleholds on LMP2 and GT?
That is the big question as we take a look at Silverstone Circuit's location. This is it's going to be a round where a lot of slipstreaming is available, and fast corners that really show the differences in pace between the cars. We've got LMP2 and GT machinery here, so you can imagine the closing speeds at the end of the straight to Stowe, for example, down to turns 10 and 11 at Abbey, and having to follow cars through the Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel section, which of course is an iconic sequence of turns. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I think Marcus Deck and Dakota Fripp, they're going to be the ones to beat still today. But that said, Marcus Deck not on pole for this one in the LMP2 class, and that is how the current circuit looks in relation to what we have here today. Obviously, a lot of changes made to Silverstone in the last 10 years.
Yeah, just up the top of that graphic is actually where the Racing Point, Aston Martin, whatever it's called, factory is as well. And that's going to get some changes as well. But yeah, great graphic there to highlight the modern Grand Prix layout versus the historic layout that we are going to be racing on today. It does have some different overtaking opportunities. In fact, if anything, I think it's got slightly less key overtaking places. You really highlighted them. Cops, if you can get a good run, Stowe, Vale, maybe the Abbey chicane, but I think overtaking a little more difficult on this layout than the updated layout. Qualifying happening right now.
Yes, indeed, and it's going to be interesting to see who grabs pole in the GT class. Has still got 2 minutes to go in that particular session. The prototypes have already run their qualifying times, and once qualifying is done and the drivers are in their briefing, we're going to take you through the pole laps for each class. But before that, we should probably think about looking at the standings, because up the front, it's been the same story for the first couple of rounds. Marcus Deck and Dakota Fripp have both taken class wins in both rounds so far. And in the prototype standings, Marcus Deck currently leads from Graham Sanders by 28 points. The finishers behind Marcus Deck have not been as consistent in their positions, so the gap has widened quite a bit, but it is very close for second in prototype.
And of course, there's a lot still up for grabs as well, and a DNF would look very, very costly, seeing how, tightly compressed that field is there. Marcus Deck, though, of course, with 2 wins, is going to be at the top. Sanders has been on his game lately. and then he's no longer on the pole for this one is Marcus Deck. So maybe this is the track where his dominance ends.
Yes, indeed. And we got to think about Adam Crane in third as well. He put on a great drive at the Nürburgring. Here are the standings for GT. Dakota Fripp with the same gap as Marcus Deck there of 28 points. Spencer Kostovich and Tristan Iglesias are his closest challengers at the moment. And Johan Boysen, he had to work his way up through the field at the Nürburgring after getting a penalty for some contact at Watkins Glen. And considering all of that, the fact that he is still fourth in the GT standings, something to be said about that. He just beat Daniel Towell there, the Australian there, in seventh. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this GT standings are going to look at the end of tonight.
Exactly, and of course, LMP2, that car, a spec category, as it were, everyone in the same machine. But GT, they're now locked into their car choice. And so how that plays out from the first two rounds to here at Silverstone could be quite fascinating. Nürburgring, where we were last time on the GP circuit, a little tighter, a little slower than here at Silverstone. So that could see maybe the Lamborghinis as more the one to watch.
Yes, indeed. And we just saw there Dakota Fripp also leading the Gentlemen's Championship standings here in the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Speaking of Omologato, well, man, what a watch we've got featured this week. It is the British Racing Green Chronograph, and what a beauty it is. Remember, on the Omologato website, if you are shopping, you can use the code SPEED2020, and you can get a free silicone wristband. Just been notified that we have a new code, Speed 2021, considering that it is the current year. So Speed 2021 on the Omologato website, you can get a free silicone wristband with this British Racing green watch, and what a beauty it is. Really reminds me of those old Aston Martins and Jaguars.
Yeah, very evocative of the British tradition in sports car racing and Grand Prix racing, and they do have a beautiful spiel on the website and on the product page about what features of the watch are inspired and in homage to different aspects and different racing cars through history. So, yes, if you aspire to that sort of thing, it's the watch for you. And if you've got a beautiful car like that, then you would be very remiss to not have this accessory to go with it.
Make sure to check out the full range of watches on the Omologato website, motorsport-inspired watches. We're featuring a new one every single round of this championship. Let's take a look then at the pole lap in the prototype class, and this is a new pole sitter. It was Marcus Deck for the first two rounds, but we're riding on board with Connor Harrington around Silverstone circuit out of Luffield and down the old start-finish straight towards the Copse corner. Now, in the Dallara P217, this opening turn very quick, but you've got to be very precise because that AstroTurf on the side, on the left-hand side, can really send you around if you touch it. Just holding flat through Maggots, but then on the brakes for Beckett's and Chappell. And Harrington had a bit of a slipstream on this lap as well, so getting a nice tow down the Hanger Straight towards Stowe Corner. Let's see if this car in front ended up getting out of his way at some point. If he managed to do this lap while following a car, really shows how quick Connor Harrington was. But the draft really helping him there down the Hanger Straight and through Club. The exit opens. Got to be careful in the Dallara P217. Doesn't like it being gotten to full throttle for too quickly. I'm still trying to find the words as I'm still waking up here in Australia. Through Abbey, the old chicane. It opens again on the exit and then almost flat out through Bridge into Priory. Getting a good draft from one of the Geodesic LMP2s there. Into Brooklands. And then Luffield again, endless slow corners that really test your patience, and you don't want to get on the throttle too quickly in the LMP2. You got to pedal it, just ease on at exit, but that was enough to grab Connor Harrington pole. 1 minute 32.954. Excellent stuff from him.
I'm pretty sure that's Graham Sanders in front of him as well, and that might have been Sanders' best lap. It was just 2/10 off Connor Harrington's best lap. So if they're that close in qualifying, then hopefully they're that close in the race as well. Should be good racing in that class where we have not at all lost drivers as the rounds have carried on. The LMP2 strength of field stays very, very strong and competitive. All of our championship hopefuls in that field.
Yes, indeed. There's 10 cars in the LMP2 class this round, and interestingly, Tyson Meyer for Geodesic Racing, good old Quirketized, he has not set a qualifying time, so he's going to be starting from the very back of his class's grid. But David, it's time to take a look at Dakota Fripp, ever dominant in the Audi R8 despite balance of performance changes, and he's on pole again here at Silverstone.
Yep, flying that Vendeval flag on the Audi R8. Not the Evo, but this is how his lap starts on the run down the pit straight towards Copse, using all of the track and making sure he gets to the apex to try to flow the speed through there. And you can see that the exit of Copse in this scan, not very forgiving at all, so you need to be perfectly precise there. Same here with the timing of the changes of direction. Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, etc. feeding on to the hangar straight. The exit here, so critical. It's flat out from the exit of the right-hander, so then he doesn't even need to use all the width of the hangar straight. Eyes searching down the track for the braking markers, for the turn-in point, for what is slightly off camber corner sometimes, and the track drops away a little on the exit here. And then again, you're setting up for a heavy braking zone. 2 changes of direction, willing to hop across the curbing a little bit there on the left, and then keep the tight line on the exit of Club here. And that is quite a bit of the lap done already. Now heading back towards home, the Abbey chicane, likewise 2 apexes, quite willing to jump across the curbs there to try to open it up. This is probably the corner I miss the most from this layout bridge. Some cars, it's a real challenge to throw it underneath there at high speed and hope that the car sticks, and it'll carry you around onto the correct line to feed into the remainder of this complex that closes out the lap of Old Silverstone. And then the GT cars breathing out the middle of the corner a little bit more than I think we saw the prototypes doing, which is interesting to see. But that is enough for Dakota Fripp to put the Audi on pole position, only just by about 0.02 of a second clear of Spencer Kostovitz in the full send Audi. Lamborghini. Full send Lamborghini.
Yes, indeed. The Audi and the Lamborghini very close mechanically, so if they ever get confused, I honestly don't mind that much. Tristan Iglesias starting in 3rd place in the GT class there. And your top 3 in prototype, joining Connor Harrington, will be Marcus Deck and Graham Sanders, who we saw racing in front of Connor Harrington on his pole lap. So the drivers still in their briefing, and we're going to be going over to the race session very shortly. We have 1 hour and 30 minutes of racing here today, which is obviously going to bring pit strategy into account. The prototypes, of course, only lasting about 45 to 50 minutes on a tank of fuel. The GTs can go a bit longer. They can go over an hour. So question is, will we be seeing a 1-stopper for the GTs, a 2-stopper for sure for the prototypes, but will we see any GTs trying to risk going for another stop?
Why are you going to say that, man? We saw the prototypes 1-stop it at Nürburgring GP circuit when we didn't think they could do it. Now, I think that's a lower fuel consumption track, a higher downforce track than here at Silverstone, but you know, they bamboozled us and did what we thought wasn't possible before. So I am going to keep my mind very open to what is the optimal strategy in the prototype class. GT, that's a bit more of a mixed bag for me. I'm not sure if we're going to see 1-stop or 2-stop there. For prototype, I'm not going to count any chickens before they hatch, because a lot of these races, a lot of this season so far, the drivers have worked out how to make fuel savings that mere mortals didn't think was possible.
Indeed, we got very surprised at the Nürburgring, but this track here at Silverstone has a lot more full throttle time, similar to Watkins Glen in terms of time spent on full throttle. So will be interesting to see what the strategy permutations are. So let's take a look at the grid then for this third round of the Geodesic Omologato Championship. It's Harrington and Deck on the front row in prototype, with Graham Sanders and Adam Crane third and fourth. Andrew Berry and Randall McGrew line up fifth and sixth, with Christopher Bailey and Jason Goddard putting the Genesis Sim Sport cars there in seventh and eighth behind their teammate McGrew. And Hayden Gober for Action Sim Sport rounding out the first 9 cars of the prototype field. Tyson Meyer a bit further down. We'll see if he takes to the grid. But it is Dakota Fripp on pole in the GT class, David, and the rest of the grid follows.
Yeah, so it is Spencer Kostovitz for Frozen Speed Full Send Racing, very much up there along with his teammate Tristan Iglesias. Then got John Boter for Corey McLemore. Johan Boyson is going to start out of 6th there, and then Aaron Ackles, John Derrick, Bo Rigger, Anthony Rossimano, Daniel Toel, and the rest of the grid goes like Zach Plummer, Garrett Thompson, Orson Morales, David Browning, Nick McLaughlin, Nichols, Hayes, and Maxime Zatilli with no qualifying time. There were a few drivers who, one of the penalties that happens is they get sent to the back of the grid for the next race, and we often see drivers who, with that penalty over their heads, not even bother to qualify.
Yes, indeed.
I think that's what's going on for Tyson Meyer, by the way.
Yeah, that makes sense, considering there was an incident at the Nürburgring that he was involved in. Well, only 10 seconds left in this session, and then we'll come back to you when the drivers are on their formation lap. You are watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship, the third round from Silverstone, here on SimSpeed TV.
I went as a spectator to Silverstone, walked around the car park where you saw lots of racing cars and Bentleys, and I saw one that appealed to me. Yeah. So I sat on the step all day until the owner came along. And I said, how much do you want for this 8-litre Bentley, a 2-seater, very powerful car? Always said £250. I said, I can't afford that. So I said, let's go and have a cup of tea. Yeah. So he said, well, what could you afford? I said, £200. Yeah. So he said, right, done. So he slapped my hand like that. Deal was done. He delivered the next day.
There's a story on this island. History lives here. If you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of a Dino, smell the petrol of a Carrera, feel the grace of an LP. In those days, lives were lost and fortunes were won in the blink of an eye. It's no longer that simple in today's world. But on an island, it's almost as if time stands still. Honoring the past by racing into the future. Motorsport, it's in our DNA.
You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship Round 3 from Silverstone. There is Marcus Deck moving away from the prototype grid. He was on pole for the first 2 rounds, but now Connor Harrington is in the box seat in the number 44. Looking forward to seeing what he can do from this position. As the field moves away, the prototypes leaving a gap to the GTs. It looks like Tyson Meyer has elected to take to the grid. He's going to be starting from the 10th and final place in the prototype standings as our GTs move away.
Yep, as I suspected happening there. And of course, race control gridding up the cars by class. So even though on the initial qualifying timesheet he was behind all of the GT cars by having no qualifying time, he is gridded at the back of the prototype field and in front of our GT leaders, who are, for this full pace lap of Silverstone, leaving a respectful gap to the prototypes in front. When you've got two classes like this with a significant speed difference, it really doesn't need to be a huge gap, but just leaving a couple seconds there allows us to have the two different starting packs. And if there is, God forbid, an incident in the prototype field, it would give the GT field just a little bit more heads up and a little bit more chance for the track to clear ahead of them. And Reese, the starting zone is going to be of great importance to both of our pole sitters.
Indeed it is. The starting zone is just out the exit of Luffield. There's two lines that go across the racetrack before the entry to the pit lane, and it's at that second line where the starting zone begins. So effectively, just look for the pit entry lane on driver's right, and that is where it's going to be. We're going to see, there we go, our director showing us where the starting zone is. You see where the yellow dotted line begins? Well, it's that second line, the one more to the right, where the starting zone actually begins. That's where the drivers can go to full throttle. And the prototype field just making their way down the straight towards Abbey now. And this turn is going to be difficult throughout the 90 minutes here tonight. It is a chicane, yes, but it's a very fast one, all things considered. Added to the circuit in 1994, and it's only really got one line through there. Very difficult to fit cars side by side.
Yeah, you got to carry a lot of speed in, and then sort of sacrifice the second part as well. It is, the spacing between the two apexes is a little, I'm not going to say clumsy, I'm not going to say unconventional, but they don't, immediately come up across each other. You've got to use a bit of space, a bit of track between them.
You do indeed. Only one corner to go then for the prototype class. They'll go through Luffield and then Woodcote. The right-hand kink off the start-finish line. The start zone has been entered and Connor Harrington goes. Marcus Deck not able to respond to him. He already has the mother of all gaps as the prototype field crosses the start-finish line, begins their race. Almost trying up the inside of Adam Crane was Andrew Berry, but that's not going to work out for him. Already a spinner, and that's Randall McGrew, who's turned around in the prototype class as the GT field takes their start. Another fantastic getaway there from Dakota Fripp as we see Randall McGrew getting going again in the prototype class just up ahead.
Again, big jump from the GT leader. It's the Tortuga BMWs going a little bit side by side. And who's going to win out in that one? I think Johan Boyson's already taken a spot away from his teammate in Corey McLemore. I think it is there for 5th and 6th in the Tortuga BMWs.
Well, the racing continues in the prototype class. Andrew Berry still harassing the back of Adam Crane there. And Connor Harrington hasn't quite gotten away over the course of this first half of the lap, because you can see Marcus Deck in the draft. He is looking for that first position, and look at how late he is on the brakes as Marcus Deck pressuring Connor Harrington for the lead. And Mr. McGrew there still having a couple of issues as split screen here. We take a look at what's going on in the GT class simultaneously. Exiting club at the moment. Fantastic to see that everyone's gotten off to a reasonably clean start as that's the first lap completed for the prototypes. Marcus Deck pressuring Connor Harrington for that lead. No such pressure for Dakota Fripp right now, though.
Yeah, he's definitely looking around a little bit with Marcus Deck, and Harrington was, trying to cover it off, trying to defend somewhat. What a wonder. Probably actually want to save a little bit of fuel at this point in the prototype class, we think. We're going to see, here comes Tyson Meyer from back of the field. He's picked off one car when Randall McGrew spun. Now he's got lined up Hayden Gober and then Jason Gotter and Christopher Bailey, the teammates in front of him. Good straight line speed, it looks like, down the hanger straight. But he just doesn't think about a move this time.
Yeah, went for the early turn in there for Stowe, whereas a very late aggressive turn in for Hayden Gober. Looks like Meyer's having a bit of trouble there with Hayden Gober right in front of him. The door opens though and he goes up the inside on the Exeter Club. Unfortunately, that's not the greatest position to be in because he's got Abbey coming up and the braking zone for that one. Well, Gober got on the brakes a bit early and actually let him go round the outside, so making it a bit difficult for Tyson Meyer there, but that is one more position for the Geodesic driver.
Yeah, sure is. We had side by side, followed by side by side, and it kind of continues here in the GT field. There is almost going to go 3 wide on the entry into Vale and Club. Daniel Toville right in the middle of this one as well.
You saw him there in the purple BMW, but still pushing the back of Zach Plummer there in the 186. Hint of a move there from Garrett Thompson for Quasar Sim Racing. His teammate Aaron Ackles is at the front of this pack, chasing Anthony Rossimano in the green Lamborghini you see just up ahead. Oh no, that's a problem for the other Genesis Sim Sport prototype of Christopher Bailey. And where's that happened? That looks like it's happened at the Beckett's S's. There's been a mistake there. And big side-by-side there with Tyson Meyer going for another move. As we take a look at the Omologato replay in the bottom right-hand corner, we're going to see what happened to Christopher Bailey. And it looks like it was contact, close racing with a teammate there that put paid to that. Little awkward in the opening laps here.
Less than optimal, that's for sure. But what has been pretty optimal is Tyson Meyer working his way up through the prototype field. Obviously picked off Christopher Bailey in very, very easy fashion, and then has worked his way up into 6th for the lead though. Different lines through the end of the lap, and Marcus Deck, that car looking quite taily. The tyres should be pretty grippy right now. The tyres should be fresh and the track is cool. So to see him really working the throttle like that, really working the steering wheel as well on the traction zone, is interesting to see this early in the race.
Yeah, Deck has really piled on the aggression. Maybe he's trying to pressure Harrington into a mistake so that he can take the lead. We know that Marcus Deck has had the measure of the other prototypes in terms of pace so far this season. And Connor Harrington, remember, didn't take pole by much. It was only a 10th to 2/10 ahead of Marcus Deck. So the battle will continue, and Deck is going to continue pushing very hard in the braking zones. It's easy to lock up the brakes in this Stellara P217. But you got to take care with your steering inputs as well, because it's very easy to overwhelm the grip of those front tyres with the way the weight transfers to the front in this car. We're doing a bit of practice in this machine for an Australian endurance racing league that's about to start soon. And it definitely is an entertaining car to try and get your head around. Marcus Deck, nice and smooth through the final sector. You see he's barely putting a foot wrong there behind Connor Harrington. And once again, he draws up to him at the end of the lap.
I can't remember how many laps of Daytona I did in this car the other weekend, but it was maybe close to 200 or something. So you're exactly right. No ABS in these prototypes. You do have to be careful with the brake. And traction control, yes, it's fitted, but it's not particularly useful. So really the best, fastest, most efficient and reliable way to drive these cars is to not use the traction control and not lock up any of the tires under brakes either.
Yeah, exactly. You've almost got to try and avoid using the traction control as much as possible, keeping your throttle inputs nice and smooth in these things. as we take a look at Adam Crane chasing down Graham Sanders, and these guys are very familiar company, racing each other closely, both at Watkins Glen and at the Nürburgring. And Adam Crane showed potential for a podium there, as I think that was Daniel Towell making his way up the inside of Aaron Ackles there in this pack for just outside the top 10 in GT. It's very closely fought, this particular class. Towell's next target is going to be Zach Plummer in that Lamborghini up ahead, but it's a long train of machines here, and those Lamborghinis are looking scary. Oh, a bit later on the brakes there for Aaron Ackles. Managed to continue through the corner. Might that have been a bit of fuel saving from Daniel Towell?
I think if you're in a pack like this, it doesn't hurt to save a little bit, but it doesn't look like there's any saving happening for the lead of the prototype class.
Oh no, it's not. The over-under for Marcus Decker takes the lead from Connor Harrington. And it looked like that's a fairly textbook move. Harrington went defensive on the inside of Copse, and it's such a fast corner that if you get the wider entry into that turn, then you're going to be able to have the advantage on exit. So now Marcus Deck back into the lead there. Connor Harrington, though, still has the fastest lap of the race so far. And we're going to take a look there at the replay, see how it was done for Marcus Deck. Goes to the outside of Copse, forces Harrington to go narrow and then wider on the exit, and just slips on through.
Even this early in the race, with the practice and qualifying having been run, down the inside there is going to be dirty. It's a very compromised entry for a very fast corner. So all the way at the pit wall for the entry into Copse is probably not where you want to be, but that was the chess from Marcus Deck setting up Harrington. That's what he had to do to defend. And then when he went that far in defense, it ironically left him a bit vulnerable, actually.
Did indeed. So now Deck is trying to consolidate this lead. We'll see what the pace translates into for him. See if that gap extends. And we'll take a look at this lap time from Marcus Decker, 34.143. Not far off Connor Harrington's fastest lap so far, but you can see that the gap is already extending as they're coming up to traffic for the first time.
Yeah, that they are. Very, very tense moment, of course. Second and third, we talked about, they qualified in second and third. Lamborghini Frozen Speed Full Send Racing teammates. Are they trading the draft back and forth? Maybe they're going to try to out-fuel strategy Dakota Fripp in the lead if they can't out-race him or outpace him. And interestingly, both of them have gone for the Endurance Lights package this time.
They have indeed. As we highlighted last round, the Lamborghini has an extra set of lights on the front bumper that's optional to use. Not everyone uses them. You see, that was Zach Plummer in the white Lamborghini using them. But, yeah, interesting what Iglesias and Kostovic are doing up there in second and third. Could be that they are trying to out-strategize Dakota Fripp, because it's quite clear from the first two rounds that it's incredibly difficult to beat Dakota on pace alone. So you're going to have to strategize your way around it. Riding on board with Daniel Towell and the BMW M4 GT3. Of course, the car that does not race in real life yet. This is a prototype version that iRacing has built with BMW, as there's been an incident. Andrew Berry in the final sector, the number 81 has been turned, and it looks like that might be something that he did all on his own. Just getting on the brakes in traffic. In the bottom right of your screen, Andrew Berry locking the rears and going for a spin. But you can see how tight it is with this replay in traffic, David, especially through that final sector. It's quite difficult to pick your way through.
Yeah, the prototypes obviously had started catching and trying to work their way through what was a very dense GT pack. We'd highlighted a lot of those little battles that were going on. Little battles, I say, 5, 6, 7 car trains that were going on. So we thought he could pick a car's length in between some of them, but that involved maybe diving down the inside a little more aggressively than the brakes and the traction was actually going to let Andrew Berry get away with.
Well, the prototypes continue making their way through. That's Indianapolis having just gone through on one of the prototypes. I think there was Tyson Meyer who just found his way past him. Meyer a bit of a ways back now from Adam Crane, his next target. Crane is doing very nicely in the traffic. And Meyer up the inside.
Would you say he has found himself mired in traffic?
Ha 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 ha! Oh my goodness! It's still a bit early in the morning for me, but I knew that was coming for sure. Oh dear!
It's also still far too early in the broadcast for that sort of nonsense, so I must only apologise. But this is a tense time for prototype and GT drivers, because you're a GT driver and you're trying to stay with the pack. Then there's these prototypes diving down the inside, swooping around the outside. You got to keep an eye on them, that they don't take you out. But as that happens, it does start to create a little chop in some of these GT trains and battles that we had going on. What was sort of 5-6 car trains becomes more isolated 2-car battles as the prototypes get in and mix it up and mess it up and break the slipstream sometimes.
You see that the gap between Deck and Harrington has really extended over the last couple of laps there. It's out to 2.5 seconds now with that traffic. They've just found their way through the front of the GT pack, actually, with Meyer there and Berry as well making their way through. His next target's going to be the Team Tortuga BMWs. In fact, the prototype field almost all together here for 8th and 9th, very close as both of those guys trying to work their way through traffic. Dakota Fripp, meanwhile, well, he's just been passed by Adam Crane, and Tyson Meyer's going to come up on him next in the prototype. This is how it looks in the GT class. Boyson and Macklemore there in the Tortuga BMWs, holding station very nicely. It's not quite the great charge we saw from Boyson at the Nürburgring, but at least he doesn't have a penalty hanging over his head, and he's able to race on.
Yeah,
Connor Harrington with another fastest lap. Sorry, I'll just insert that there.
There you go. Yeah, he has gone and pulled out the fastest lap of the race. Interestingly, not a lot of big movers in the GT field yet so far. I mean, Boyson is up 1 position into 5th, but then the only other big mover is Zach Plummer, who's up 2 positions into 10th in the GT field. So while there's been the trains and the battles, a lot of them are really just running how they qualified at the moment, which is interesting because the qualifying was so close. I think the top 3 were about 1/10 of a second or something. Only 100ths of a second to separate pole from second place.
Yeah, the gaps that we're seeing in the race a little bit more conservative there, as Christopher Bailey trying his best to catch up to Hayden Gober here. Both of these cars having faced issues more towards the start, and oh, there we go. One of the Geodesic Lamborghinis making life difficult for Christopher. He has to go to the outside on the exit of Club, and you've got to be very careful when you get up to heavy braking zones in a prototype if you've got a GT in front of you, because depending on where you are, how close you are to the car in front, there's every chance that you're going to have to try and take avoiding action. Like here, that was a very late decision to go to the inside of the bridge corner. You've got to count on the GT driver knowing that you're coming and delaying their turn in just slightly so you can both get through the corner safely without losing too much time. But as we've seen, it's entirely possible to get it wrong.
How about that? Marcus Deck is going to grab the fastest lap of the race back from Connor Harrington. We know in these prototype cars, underneath 1,000 kilos, maybe a lot closer to 850 or 900 or something, a centrally located fuel tank, once they start burning through 10, 20 kilograms of fuel and they're light on their tires and don't wear them down, they get faster as the stint goes on rather than getting slower 10, 12 laps into a run. They get quicker as the fuel burns away right up until the first pit stop rolls around.
Indeed, we're going to be seeing that pace slowly climb down for the prototypes. John Derrick in the McLaren, chasing down Corey McLemore in the Team Tortuga BMW. 5th, 6th, and 7th. Derek could be looking at a top 5 here if he plays his cards right. He sees the Tortuga teammates just up ahead of him there. They might be working together to save just a little bit of fuel, make their pit stop a little bit shorter. But John Derek in the McLaren, the oldest GT3 car on iRacing, versus 2 of the newest ones in those BMW M4s.
Rear-facing camera from the McLaren always delivers the goods. In fact, a lot of angles of the McLaren, one can say, deliver the goods, but that off-throttle overrun and some of the gear shifts as well. It's fine in these conditions. There are, nighttime running and others where it is truly spectacular.
Yeah, fire-breathing McLaren right there with that twin-turbo V8. Meanwhile, Garrett Thompson and Orson Meireles almost coming together, with Meireles... Oh no, that's another problem there for Jason Gotter in the Genesis prototype. Looks like he's carrying some damage to his front left. We're just queuing up a replay now, so we'll be able to take a look at that soon. Meireles, though, on the back of Garrett Thompson here, and looking quite quick, it seems.
So it is both these drivers running at the moment where they qualified. 13th, 14th in class. This might be just slightly holding pattern, looking forward to their pit stops and trying to cut down time there and jump some positions and track position once it's time for pit stops.
And here's what happened to Jason Gotter. Oh my goodness, yeah. Got into the AstroTurf there on the exit of Copse. And once that happens, the rear end swings out, tried to recover and went straight into the wall. So now he's got pretty heavy damage to his front left. That's going to set him back a fair way and put him off sync with the pit stop strategy. Meireles, though, still on the back of Garrett Thompson and really pressuring him in terms of lap times. Well, Meireles was 7/10 faster on the last lap. So Garrett Thompson is going to have to watch out.
Different lines again through Abbey. You saw the Lamborghini push out wider from the first apex and then a narrower entry to the second apex, where it's a bit more measured, a bit more even from the BMW. Jason Gotter there on the pit lane, very unsurprisingly after the speed and severity of that impact. It's either going to be significant repairs, or at a minimum that's going to force him into a 2-stop strategy, if that wasn't already the plan.
You saw from Garrett Thompson in the Lamborghini, he really went for that open line in the middle of the final turn. The GT cars, of course, depending a bit more on mechanical grip, and they like it if you can straighten out the exit of a corner like Luffield. It's so long that sometimes taking the conventional line might actually be slower in cars like these. In terms of lap times on this lap, it was very close between Thompson and Meireles, only 0.07 of a second between them. So that 13th and 14th position in GT is going to be hard fought for quite some time to come. In terms of our prototype class, everyone is spaced out at the moment. Since the field found their way through the GT traffic, they haven't really kept each other company. The closest 2 prototypes are Hayden Gober and Christopher Bailey, down in 7th and 8th position.
Gober's just set his personal best lap of the race, and I've seen quite a few PBs start coming up in the prototype field when they get a clean lap for the first time after burning off a little bit of fuel. See some of them go quicker. Bailey, though, on the verge of catching Gober here, and I have to think, with how much Deck has gotten away in the lead and the consistent pace from Sanders, I think Sanders in third might actually catch Harrington as well.
Yeah, could certainly be on in the prototype class, but we take another look at the battle that we've been keeping track of in GT. Just outside the top 10, Towel and Ackles looking back from Towel there at Ackles. And it seems that Zach Plummer has gapped Daniel Towel in the last few laps, so these guys are going to be keeping each other company for some time to come. They might sync up their pit stops as well, and we might see them fighting very hard towards the very end of the race. Loving those split screen double picture camera angles. You can get both angles of a battle at the same time. Down the hangar straight, the draft will come into effect, and Ackles in the Lamborghini, you can see once again, we mentioned this a couple rounds ago, the height difference between the BMW and the Lamborghini. Very noticeable, especially at a track like Silverstone, where there's these long straights and you get these long shots of the cars. And looks like our prototype leader about to come through the pack again.
Yeah, it's a regular affair now for Marcus Deck to be catching the GT traffic. He worked his way very cleanly around the outside of Garrett Thompson and Orson Morales. Now it's a little trickier to try to slot his way in between this battle we were looking at.
Goodness me, that was close there for Gober and Bailey. Nick McLaughlin in the Genesis BMW is his prototype teammate Christopher Bailey coming through very closely on the run up to Stowe. Well, Hayden Gober has been held up somewhere, and Bailey now right on the back of him. As I mean, you can see that in both classes there is battles to be had. There's no change though between Gober and Bailey for now as they enter the final sector. Let's take a look at these steering inputs for Christopher Bailey. Then into third for Priory. You see, you've got to be smooth on the inputs for the Dallara P217, especially in these lower speed corners. It does not like your steering input or your throttle input to be too aggressive. Got to be very careful, manage the oversteer on the exit, look after those rear tyres. And Bailey is doing everything right at the moment here versus Hayden Gober. He's going to have to be patient though. Not many passing opportunities in this area of the circuit. In fact, barely, basically none at all. Going through the S's, you've got to be careful of the aero push as well. These cars can follow each other quite closely, but you still get a bit of washout when you're following another car very closely and might suffer a bit of understeer. He is within draft range down the hangar straight though, and the draft will come into play. We saw how big the draft was at the Nürburgring, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out for Christopher Bailey this time. Just electing to stay behind Hayden Gober for now. Not enough of a run.
He's using a different set of gear lengths than Connor Harrington was running in qualifying. There's, I think, just 3 fixed gear sets. You either use short, standard, or tall.
Yeah.
Because he only just got into 6th gear, and we saw the start of the rev lights at the end of the hangar straight there, whereas the qualifying lap we saw on board was near banging the limiter in 6th gear. He's going to get a good run out of Abbey, though. Look to the inside of Bridge, just wasn't brave enough to commit to it. I mean, fair enough. Only just had the nose down the inside there. But yeah, interesting. He's racing with different gear ratios than the pole sitter qualified with.
Yeah, very interesting. And there's many reasons for that. One of them could be that he just likes how the car sits in the rev range out of the slower corners with that gear set. Or maybe a bit of a better exit down the hangar straight. Of course, the gear ratio sets really majorly affect the final 3 gears, 4th, 5th, and 6th. They're more for top-end speed than anything else. But have a look at how aggressive the Genesis car of Christopher Bailey was coming through the S's. Unfortunately, I think that's compromised his run through the rest of the complex, and the weaving begins again, the defensive driving from Hayden Gober. He knows that he's in trouble here.
There's definitely a couple corners where Bailey's looking a lot stronger. Looks like he carried a lot more speed. For example, like we saw at the exit of Abbey a lap ago, where all of a sudden, Bailey just picks up the throttle a lot stronger, but then was so apprehensive about using that speed to get down the inside of Bridge. Here's another example. He's picked up the power really well coming out of club here, and then he ended up right behind Hayden Gober, had a bit of a wiggle, and not been able to do anything about it. So it might be sensible to just back it up a little bit, get a good run, and then grab an opportunity when it appears. A bit of traffic is going to maybe throw the spanner in the works on that one for the moment, though.
Well, they both managed to find their way through David Browning in the Tortuga BMW nicely. It doesn't look like they lost much time between them. Check in with David Browning's teammates, meanwhile. For the top 5, Johan Boyson and Corey McLemore very close here in the two Bimmers. And they're keeping each other very close company here, which is nice to see. And they're also staying out of each other's way to an extent as well, as we see one of the geodesic prototypes find their way through. That's Meyer that is going through on them. And Meyer up into 5th in the prototype class himself, so the charge continues for him. Boyson, though, another consistent drive from him. We've seen him rep the McLaren in the past, but switching to the BMW with the rest of his team for this season, and already saw that charge at the Nürburgring and some great moves at Watkins Glen. Might be on for another Boyson spectacular here at Silverstone as we take a look at Rossimano and Plummer. Rossimano, a driver that I believe he did do well at the Nürburgring, and having to deal with some prototype traffic once again. That is the 81 of Andrew Berry. But 9th and 10th in GT, very closely fought here between Rossimano and Plummer.
Yeah, certainly did no favours for Rossimano that time, because he still got the other Lamborghini right up his tailpipe. And on the GT3 Lamborghini, that is where the exhaust is, on the back, unlike the BMW, which has it exiting behind the front wheels. And yeah, behind the front wheels, I think. The Aston Martin does the same with some weird exhaust routing, but he's not looking particularly strong in the straight line here towards Cox. Then also, didn't look like Zach Plummer was quite in a hurry to get by, probably also dissuaded by the presence of that prototype that might have also wanted to look down the inside.
Yeah, Hayden Gober there as well. That's a problem for Meyer on the exit of the S's. He just found his way through on those two BMWs, but they're saying hello once again. I'm not too sure how that happened there for Tyson Meyer. Going to go back and check. It actually looks like he was making his way through on a GT and ended up losing traction and spun himself in the middle of these turns. Found his way through on the Lamborghini there. But you'll see he just gets a little bit of oversteer, and then over the curb it's just exacerbated, and he goes head on into the wall. That is a big bit of contact there for Tyson Meyer, which is a shame. He was working his way up to the front, and now he's been set back massively.
Yeah, wow, from when we caught the pictures and how far he was off the track, I hadn't thought that he hit the wall, but actually he had. So very quick fix if it does cause damage on those prototype cars. But yeah, still something you can damage and lose a lot of straight line speed, a lot of downforce, and so therefore a lot of time with just a relatively light hit on the nose or the tail sections of the prototypes. If you see underneath them, and hopefully you don't see underneath the prototypes all too often, but if one of them does flip, in trouble. Yeah, if one of them does flip and you get a sneaky peek, there's actually, sort of Formula One style wings underneath, where the splitter is. It's shaped at the front there, and you can imagine the air going through there as efficiently creates downforce as a open wheeler's wing would at the front.
Interesting to note, Tyson Meyer has not gone to the pits despite that heavy contact with the wall. So I think he might have just gotten away with it. He might have gotten lucky, or maybe he's taking a couple of laps just to assess how the car's damage is, see if it's worth actually going in for an extra stop to get the damage repaired. But yeah, interesting to note that he has not decided to get that damage repaired yet. Andrew Berry just behind him there for position, but we'll see if Meyer gaps him.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually interesting that he's got Berry within a second there, and that gives us a point of comparison for, if Tyson is looking off pace, if he's giving time away in straight line, would be very, very able to see it visually. There is your GT3 leader at the moment, Dakota Fripp, doing very well to always get the inside through these sections of corners. You know, if he's going to give a lane to the prototypes, he's not going to give up the racing line. That is the wily GT competitor in him.
Yes, indeed, and he'll know that the prototypes are well capable of holding their own around the outside in these corners here at Silverstone. But a great drive from Dakota Fripp so far, as the first half hour of the race has been run. There's no sign of him being surmounted for the lead, as we check back in with Thompson and Meireles for 13th and 14th in GT. These two still keeping each other very close company. Across the line they're going to go again, and a 47.6 for Thompson, a 47.7 for Meireles. They are locked together right now.
Yeah, absolutely they are. Is the BMW maybe saving a little more fuel though? It's definitely riding a little more curb, and we did see from at least the replay on the prototypes that you do have to be careful with some of the curbs around here. Maybe the exit of Cops is especially bumpy, but I would be, at least a little cautious. Long gears for this BMW if it doesn't get into 6th on the hanger straight.
Yeah, and the BMW has only one set of gear ratios like the majority of GT3 cars do. Takes the ratios, I think, part way from the road version of the BMW M4. And as you go up the rev range, it really does get long. So when we go to higher speed tracks, watch out for the BMW M4, see how close it gets to hitting the rev limiter. Does make it a bit difficult from my experience to navigate slower turns though, because the lower gear ratios are short to the point that sometimes you're going to encounter corners between gears.
So it's like the GT4 version as well, where it's got a lot of gears and half of them are useless. But on the
Pretty
GT4,
much.
it's got the same ratios as the 7-speed semi-automatic in the road car, where first and second are designed for navigating a car park. Therefore, third is the shortest gear you can really use in race conditions. And 7th gets it a very good fuel economy figure to put in the sticker in the window on the dealership. So 7th is right out the window for racing. So you get 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th maybe out of your 7-speed gearbox. But this is bigger and more poignant. Connor Harrington is in quite early, we would think.
Yeah, he is actually. Well before the 45-minute mark that we'd expect the prototypes to last to on their fuel tanks. So Harrington, we might see a little bit of fuel saving from him, but remember, Marcus Deck pitted early at the Nürburgring last round, and he managed to go nearly an hour in that car. Harrington has taken his his fuel. He has not taken tyres in that pit stop, and really, why would you? In the prototype, the tyres are, of course, done in the pit stop after the fuel is, so you're going to lose a lot of time if you decide to take tyres. And Dakota Fripp brings the GT lead in, and he's been followed in there, I think, by Kostovic. In fact, both of the Full Send Racing Lamborghinis are in there with him.
Yeah, all of your top 3 in, and then shock, horror, and surprise, Johan Boyson goes a lap longer. John Bodefer also went a lap longer, though. They're all piling in to the pit lane. They are literally piling into the pit lane.
And Marcus Deck literally piling it into the wall just about. I don't know if that was contact there. Did Deck actually hit the wall? I've gone back and checked. He was passing one of the GTs coming in, Daniel Towell, and Marcus Deck just avoided hitting the pit entry wall there. This is going to be one heck of an Omologato replay to watch. Marcus Deck almost losing the lead there, and lock up to keep it out of the wall. there you go.
Still looked very fast past the yellow cones, though. Even though he, had them all locked up and he avoided the wall, it still seemed like he had a lot of slowing up to do after he passed the start of the pit lane speed. And, well, Connor Harrington was done in 23 seconds, and Marcus Deck is still stationary after 30. So this very well could see quite a lot of time go down the drain for Marcus Deck being too ambitious on pit in.
Yeah, that's undoubtedly a speeding in pits penalty that he's serving. The time would be added onto his stop, and he'd have to sit at a standstill ever longer. And he's actually still stopped in the pit lane as Botifer picks up the GT lead with the pit from Dakota Fripp, and immediately there, Botifer's tank is out. He goes. Marcus Deck has now been in the pit lane, the pit box for over a minute there, as Tyson Meyer overtakes him. Finally, Marcus Deck gets going after a minute and 12 seconds, but that is Deck's run absolutely ruined. I think he was overdue some bad luck after his double win to kick off the season, but surely not like this.
Yeah, and that is one of those little things where you've come in just fractionally too hot, been slightly distracted, and it really, really, really stings you on the pit in. But critically, around about the timing of this is committed almost every class and almost everyone to a 2-stop race. Definitely for Graham Sanders, for Connor Harrington, for Dakota Fripp, and the full send Lamborghinis as well.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if any of the prototype guys have a trick up their sleeve, if they can somehow make that tank last towards the end. But our GT guys continue to move along. Dakota Fripp back into the lead as Graham Sanders takes his prototype in there. Kostovic, Iglesias, Botifer, Boyson, McLemore, your top guys.
A bit of contact there.
Oh, yeah, the number 90 there of Hayden Gober getting into, I think that was John Derrick, who's having more issues there. He had a big oversteer moment coming onto the hangar straight, and he's going to lose out to, or almost lose out to one of the Genesis SimSport teammates there. But that was quite awkward coming through the back end of the S's. That's one of the places where you can certainly come together with a slower class car, because there's really only one line through there, and you can't run side by side without someone getting massively compromised.
Exactly. If you're in the prototype class and you just wait behind a GT3 car the whole way, it's going to cost you a lot of time. But if you try to dive it in, use your extra grip to go around, doesn't always work.
Yeah, and you see in the bottom right corner, that's what happened there to John Derrick. A good save across the grass to keep it going, and he's managed to keep those cars behind him for position, but still, that's some extra time that he would not have wanted to have lost. Well then, for Adam Crane, he is staying out here in the prototype, and the rest of them gradually coming in. Hayden Gober pitting, and I think that is yes, his first pit stop, so he's decided to bring it in there at a bit more of an even 50-50 split in terms of race time. And what will Adam Crane do? News from Race Control, meanwhile. We just saw Hayden Gober pitting, and Race Control have had a word about that incident there with John Derrick. Apparently, no further action, because it was partially connection-related, that contact.
Didn't quite look it on first approach, but it was certainly a little self-penalising as well. I think in a contact between a GT3 car, someone's just gone off.
Ooh.
Behind Tyson Meyer. Who was that?
Um,
Yeah, big. Yeah, I saw Austin Miralez went off the track at great speed, and as that's very well evidenced by the damage on the front, on the bonnet, on the right-hand side in front of the wheel arch.
You're right. How did that happen to him? This is coming through the Beckett's S's. getting on the brakes. Tyson Meyer just behind there to make his way through, and oh, there we go, just caught the grass and did the same thing that Meyer did effectively to get his damage, and wow, very heavy damage to that BMW. You'll see as he was already dealing with some oversteer there, just exited a bit too wide, and that was a huge hit there.
Yeah, exactly right. You could see it from onboard. You could see it from offboard. He was coming through the right-hander with the tail out just a little bit. Entirely manageable slip angle, except for when that rear outside tire that the car was leaning on touched the grass, and the grip went from manageable to no, and that just spun the car around, and he was going very fast at that point, obviously. So heavy contact with the wall that I don't think he's going to get away with.
Adam Crane leading the prototype class brings it in for Satellite Racing. And we'll see how this works out for him. He'd already lapped a couple of his class compatriots there. But now this will put things back in sync with everyone else. Zach Plummer now on the back of John Derrick here. And Plummer still in 10th place, losing a bit of time to Bo Rigger and Daniel Towell up ahead, but stands a chance of getting in on this top 9 with John Derrick obviously carrying some slight damage from that contact earlier with Hayden Gover. See how that ends up affecting that car, and waiting to see what kind of stop we'll see from Adam Crane. He has now been in the stop for 30 seconds, and oh, there we go. He is away. Back down to third as Graham Sanders finds his way past. 32.5 second stop there for Adam Crane, and he will sort himself back in there. Marcus Deck and Tyson Meyer together on track with that penalty for Marcus Deck. He's got to work his way back through the prototype field here and catch some GTs on the exit of Luffield. That is John Derrick he's going by at the moment, with Zach Plummer just behind. Very close quarters here for the prototypes in the first sector of the track.
So what I noticed for the prototype field is that everyone bar Connor Harrington took a full load of fuel at their pit stop. Harrington came in a little early, took a little bit of a short stop, and then his next pit stop is probably also going to be a little bit longer. But basically, Harrington took 10 seconds less of fuel than Sanders, but isn't 10 seconds up the road from him. Fuel adjusted, Graham Sanders is actually ahead of Connor Harrington on strategy at the moment.
Right, so if Connor Harrington comes back into the pits, which we expect him to, look out for Graham Sanders to move forward into the first place spot. And I think it'll be a blessing for Graham Sanders that there was that incident for Marcus Deck on pit entry, having to serve that penalty, because if it wasn't Sanders taking advantage of it, it would have been Deck.
So critical for Graham Sanders, I think, is he just needs to stay within about 8 or 9 seconds of Connor Harrington to be able to be assured of jumping him when they both make their second round of pit stops. That's it. That's interesting. Very different playbook than 2 weeks ago. Now we're seeing these two-stop strategies. Some have gone for, a full tank of fuel and then a splash coming later. Harrington's tried to chop it up into 2 equal-sized pit stops of about, 3/4 a tank of fuel. And from that, he's been able to get quite a bit of track position in the race lead. Might come undone at the second stop, though, if Graham Sanders can stay close.
Indeed. Let's keep a close eye on that one as we're past the halfway point of the race now. In terms of time, we've entered the final 45 minutes. And now we go back to full-on racing for a bit, rather than just strategizing. Dakota Fripp and Spencer Kostovich there, both in the same picture at the front of the GT field, and matched very closely in terms of times. Kostovich was only a few hundredths slower than Fripp on the previous lap. So with Audi, Lamborghini, and Lamborghini taking up those top 3 positions, tell you what, Tristan Iglesias actually right with them as well. These guys have all set 1 minute 46.7 lap times in those top 3 positions. It's very closely fought right now.
Yeah, just 400ths of a second from Dakota Fripp's lap to Tristan Iglesias, with Kostovic about in the middle. Now they're all going to come across the start-finish line about now and change that up a little bit. But yep, in the clean air and with no distractions, all very similar between the top 3, much closer than some previous rounds.
Yeah, 46.5 from Dakota Fripp and a 46.3 from Kostovic, with 46.9 from Iglesias. As we see prototype battle coming up to Cops. This is Hayden Gober and Christopher Bailey, and that's Gober moving ahead there, still protecting as they go through the traffic. Oh, easy does it. That was Bo Rigger there in the Geodesic Ferrari. Hayden Gober just squeezing through with enough room on the outside, and they're trying to find their way through on the Genesis cars. And oh no, the 2 Genesis cars have come together. Christopher Bailey locked up and got into Daniel Towell there, and Towell has completely lost touch with that battle, and he'll have a fair whack to his right-hand side. Won't be too happy about that one, and I think that will be an interesting debrief for Genesis Sim Sport. Quick replay before we go to a break. We'll take a look at... You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship, Round 3 from Silverstone. Took a look at the static cameras there for a very short while as we had a word from our series sponsor, Omologato Motorsport Watches. It's been an interesting race so far, and as we just talked about before, David, the strategy for the lead of Prototype is going to be quite interesting, with Connor Harrington taking a 10-second shorter pit stop than Graham Sanders in second, but only 8 seconds up the road. A big thanks once again to Omologato. If you use the code SPEED2021 at checkout, receive a bonus silicone brand with any purchase you make. Big thanks to Omologato, but we could certainly see a very closely fought lead there for Prototype. Graham Sanders effectively in the box seat for that, as we see Christopher Bailey coming out of the pits. He has just served a penalty for that contact with Daniel Towell earlier, trying to make his way through the Beckett's S's.
Yeah, and on his teammate too was, That's awkward, not great. Unfortunately for Christopher Bailey, that has dropped him about 22 seconds behind Hayden Gober, who is having a great battle with. Flying in, there's quite a bit of flying in formation, actually.
Oh no! Connor Harrington's just massively taken out Zach Plummer. Smashed into the wall at Stowe. I think that might be a penalty incoming for our race leader, and that definitely deserves an Omologato replay. What on earth happened there? It looks like... Oh, just went straight into the back of Zach Plummer. I think there was a slight miscommunication between these two drivers. You're going to see Connor Harrington come out of the Beckett Cessers there with Zach Plummer and the white Lamborghini just up ahead. And I think he was expecting Plummer to turn in a bit earlier because goes for the move and then right into the back of Zach Plummer goes Connor Harrington. They both went for the turn in at the same time. Plummer expecting Harrington to stay behind, I reckon.
Yeah, I kind of got to see probably like the Harrington on board of something like that to see if there was something he saw that warranted a really late move to the inside. I mean, we're gonna see it from this angle, and
boom.
It's not great. It's not pretty, and it doesn't flatter the prototype driver from any of the angles we've seen yet.
But let's have a look at this one. Harrington obviously wanted to go for the inside at Stowe. And I don't know, man. It's just bizarre. And race control hasn't wasted any time there. Connor Harrington has been black flagged for that contact with Zach Plummer. So looks like the strategy game is not going to play out as we'd hoped. Graham Sanders is effectively going to be gifted the lead of this one.
Yeah, it's disappointing for us to watch the strategy play out. It's very good news for Graham Sanders because it's going to gift him a 9-second lead over Adam Crane, and it gives Marcus Deck a chance to still fight back and stand on the podium, which you assume would still keep him as championship leader. He can still make something of this race, but it is... a big gift to Graham Sanders and big mistake from Connor Harrington, who you can see picture in picture serving that penalty right now. A drive-through penalty it is for causing a collision.
Indeed, and race control clearing the black flag as he enters the pit lane. Harrington will drive through the pit lane and then the penalty will be served.
You know what I noticed? He's running the same gear set in the race as he was in qualifying. He was pretty close to hitting that rev limiter in 6th at the end of Stowe. At the end of the Hangar Straight was Connor Harrington.
Yeah, so interesting gear ratio choice there. That might have been what helped him to carry the pace that he has. Want to remind everyone again that we do have the prize on offer from Toe King for drivers this week for the most consecutive laps without an incident. It's going to be $25 cash for the driver that manages to do that. Unfortunately, I don't think Connor Harrington or Zach Plummer are going to be on that list because that was a fair whack for those guys. But it would be interesting to hear after tonight who has managed to net that prize thanks to Toe King. Of course, this series does place quite a bit of emphasis on racing as clean as possible. Meanwhile, the gap up the front of GT, under 2 seconds between Dakota Fripp and Spencer Kostovich. Looking forward to seeing how this battle works out in the last half hour of the race. A 46.4 from Dakota Fripp, his last lap, and another 46.4 from Kostovich. Again, they're super closely matched, and Christopher Bailey trying to find his way through on Kostovich here. He's going to have to get it done on the Hangar Straight.
I've just been looking at the Gentleman's Championship and the the clean driving and such. And I think it's safe to say Connor Harrington's going to drop out of the top 5 in that, where he previously was. So a real shame around where it's looked like he had some pace to really challenge up front, landed that pole position, and really set himself back with just a moment's indecision at the highest closing speed section of the track.
Yeah, I think he'll be ruining that one for a while. And if he somehow finishes on the podium and we can talk to him, I'd certainly like to ask him about that. Riding on board with the second place Lamborghini with Dakota Fripp just up ahead. Once again, these are the Gentleman's Championship standings. You can see that...
you got your magnifying glass out for that one?
A little bit. I am struggling to see who's there. It looks like Connor Harrington was just there in 4th place. But of course, he's not going to be in 4th place after tonight, after that incident. But Dakota Fripp, I mean, all he has had to do here, I mean, I'm not trying to diminish his accomplishments here. It takes a lot of effort to become as fast and consistent as Fripp has shown he can be. But it's been a case of get into the lead, stay in the lead, and don't look back at all for Dakota Fripp. That's why he's leading the Gentleman's Championship, because he's just been able to spend that time just lapping out the front, keeping it consistent. Harrington back into 3rd, meanwhile.
Interestingly, a drive-through penalty is less severe here than at some other circuits. It's a reasonably sized pit lane, but this pit lane speed limit is 45 miles an hour or so. It's 72 kilometers an hour, not like some of the slower 50, 60 kilometer an hour pit lane speed limits. In fact, it's quite slow in the new layout. So the drive-through penalty, all things considered, has put Connor Harrington back into 3rd where he runs right now, 8 seconds off the lead. Still, we think going to need 10 seconds more fuel in the second stop, though, than Crane and Sanders ahead. You add that, net adjusted, Harrington is about 5 seconds ahead of Deck and 10 seconds behind Crane. Once you factor in the shorter early stop from Harrington. So really, he can see Crane in front of him, but his fight is to try to stay 10 seconds ahead of Marcus Deck.
Well, that's the number that Connor Harrington's going to be looking at, and that will be a few more tenths lost with the encounter with the Lamborghini of Spencer Kostovich through Copse. You see Adam Crane having to back off here behind the GT leader of Dakota Fripp, and both of these prototypes going to find their way around the outside. Connor Harrington's going to see a chance here to get through on Adam Crane. Those shorter gear ratios working well for him down the hanger straight, and he is through. Adam Crane lifting off and letting him go before they got to the braking zone. And Adam Crane would have known that they're on completely different strategies and they're not actually racing each other at the moment, so might as well let Connor go.
If he knows what we know, then he knows he doesn't need to fight this one. And even if he doesn't, Adam Crane was one of those drivers also in the top 5 for clean races, minimum incident points. So just letting the, pole pace car that had been penalized and come out right behind you go is also the good thing for a clean race and for you to continue hitting your own fuel mileage and marks as well. Remember, Crane went a lot longer than some others. He went 4 laps longer than Meyer and Deck in the first stint as well. So Crane is really, I think, focused on his own race, his own fuel numbers, etc. Not really bothered with trying to make himself as wide as possible with Harrington behind.
Yes, indeed. Boyson and Macklemore. They continue flying in formation, these Team Tortuga BMWs, and not doing too badly either. with being 5th and 6th in class still. But these guys, John Derrick, Anthony Rossimano, fighting hard. They got Orson Meireles behind them, but Meireles is way off at the moment. He's had a big problem there. I think I remember his is just catching the curb on the exit of the Beckett's S's. He's now 4 laps down on the rest of the GT class. No, 8 laps, sorry. 8 laps down on our GT leaders. So he's not going to be a factor in this battle between Derrick and Rossimano. But the battle of the mid-engine machines continues here, with Derrick still dealing with some damage from some time ago. Kostovich, meanwhile, taking a few more tenths out of Dakota Fripp, the gap down to 1.46 seconds. Could we see a different winner in our GT class here tonight?
Yeah, this one, very close indeed. Kostowitz has sort of, I think, after the first pit stop, turned it up a little bit, left his teammate Tristan Iglesias behind, and is now firmly focused on Fripp. And, we had that different pit stop lengths in prototype, just being led by Connor Harrington's different strategy, but no such division exists within the GT ranks, where basically everyone has either a 25 or a 26 second pit stop already under their belt. Very, very similar fuel numbers at the first drop for everyone. Probably leads you to suspect very, very equal pit stop lengths at the second time around.
Yeah, can certainly expect that. As we take a look at the battle again between Derrick and Rossimano. Gap between them is extended a little thanks to Hayden Gober, who we just saw going through in his prototype. But Rossimano not wasting any time trying to catch back up to John Derrick here. The McLaren with its twin-turbo V8 versus the Lamborghini with its naturally aspirated V10. Effectively the same car underneath as the Audi R8 that Dakota Fripp is driving, and that is Daniel Towell back in the pits for Genesis Sim Sport. We saw him getting that hit from his prototype teammate Christopher Bailey just before, and I think if that's not a routine pit stop, it looks like it actually is. So Mr. Towell back out of the pits, and only 17 seconds stop time, so 2 stops there for Mr. Towell. With the damage that he has already got, might as well try.
Yeah, he's cut it in half to the end, because his first run was 20 laps. He's just done 15, and now there's 15 more to get to the end from here. So sort of, rather than run the tank empty and then pit, sort of found a pit stop halfway between where he was and where he was going.
Well, back out on track is Daniel Towell, and the battle continues between Derrick and Rossimano. Coming around to start their 37th lap here in the GT class.
You're dying for some Lamborghini GT3 fun facts that I've noticed.
Oh, yes.
You can tell that the GT3 Lamborghini is an Audi underneath because of the big vents it's got in front of the rear wheels. The road-going Audi R8, big vents in front of the rear wheel, mid-mounted radiators there. Road-going Huracan doesn't have those. If you look up a picture of the road-going Huracan, it doesn't feature big radiators in that place. But the race Lamborghini does, because the race Audi does.
Indeed it does, and you notice that they also share the same dashboard as well. The electronic dashboard and the rev lights, they're exactly the same between the two cars. Dakota Fripp in the Vandervaal Audi and Anthony Rossimano in the Action SimSport Lamborghini. Same dashboard.
And on the Audi R8 Evo, which we don't have on iRacing, the interior matches exactly what's in the Lamborghini Evo there, including the air conditioning snorkel, including all of the buttons to the center cockpit. Oh, that's a bit close.
Yeah, David Browning and Garrett Thompson fighting Tortuga versus Quasar, and Browning around the outside of club. They're going to have a prototype for company here. One of the geodesic ones manages to slip through, split them. That is the number 25 of Tyson Meyer, but David Browning continuing to protect here from Garrett Thompson. Very close battling between these two, and it just goes to show down at club, through Vale coming into club, it's quite the racy part of the track. As that's Connor Harrington in for his second routine stop there. So if it weren't for that penalty, we would have had a very interesting battle for the lead in prototype, but hasn't worked out so far thanks to that penalty for Connor Harrington. But you can really run side by side through club as it opens out, and if your traction is good enough, the BMW there with its front engine rear wheel drive layout, just able to get the traction down super nice, and the amount of torque from that inline 6-cylinder engine certainly helps too.
Isn't it a V8 in the GT3?
No.
No?
It's when I checked the specs page, it said an inline 6 for the BMW M4, and it certainly doesn't sound like a V8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
there you go.
That sort of raspy groan that you hear from the BMWs is a classic inline 6-cylinder sound. In fact, I from one of my mates who used to work in marketing, he told me he worked on BMW's account in Southeast Asia in advertising. He said that BMW had actually copyrighted the sound of the Z4's inline 6-cylinder engine because it was so important to their brand.
There you go. If it's if you liked it, then put a ring on it. I guess lock it down. So Harrington, first to make the second stop in the prototype class, is not surprising, remembering he took a shorter splash first time around. But then what is interesting is that this second fuel stop he's gone for 22 seconds of fuel, which would suggest that everyone else is still going to need about 10 to 12 seconds of fuel. The wild card is Adam Crane, who managed to go so much longer in the first stint.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see for Adam Crane whether or not he can make it all the way to the end on the tank that he has now, with 20 minutes to go. Not too long now to make a decision. As Fripp and Kostovic continue to fight hard for that particular lead. Those static cameras really showing how quick the approach is here into Copse. It's a very quick corner. They've been through quite a few changes over the years, but still a challenging fast right-hander that is just about flat out if you're running in a high-speed, high-downforce machine. But in these GTs and prototypes, you do have to get on the brakes a bit, lift off the throttle, and allow yourself to tip it in. So Fripp still showing no sign of stopping this charge up at the front. He lets one of the prototypes go in the former Hayden Gober, who's already dealt with, I think, one black flag so far today. Kostovic seems to just be getting closer and closer lap on lap. If the gap's not staying constant, it's certainly just being chipped away at as we see Derek jumping into the pits once more from 9th. That's going to put him outside the top 10, I think.
Yeah, I saw it was underneath a second, this battle for the lead in the GT3 field. And Corey McLemore and Johan Boyson have just swapped. Boyson had been the lead car of the two almost all race long that I can recall. Now, Corey goes ahead, but critical to get underneath that 1 second for Kostovic, because now down the hangar straight and along the pit straight here, he might pick up a little bit of a slipstream, and if they were equal up until this point, a 10th of a second here, a 10th of a second there in the slipstream isn't going to hurt as both of them dive for pit lane, though.
Hello. Oh, and have a look at the aggressive entry there from Kostovic. That made up an extra couple of tenths there. So, it's a battle of the pit stops now for the lead in GT. A splash and dash for the end.
Get a replay of Christopher Bailey as well. I don't know if he just went for pit lane and then aborted out of it, or if he got forced down onto pit lane by a GT3 on his outside or something, but he just had a, it was in, stay out or something.
Well, I tell you what, there's been quite the development with this GT pit stop. Not only did Dakota Fripp overshoot his pit box and have to reverse back in, but Spencer Kostovic has had such a long stop that he's fallen behind his teammate Tristan Iglesias. So there's been some kind of miscalculation there, I think, in the full send racing Lamborghini of Kostovic. Completely lost out there on that battle for the lead.
Yeah, overfueled or started changing tyres when they didn't need to. The replay here is Bailey.
Right.
Is he going for pit in and the GT's in the way?
Oh, yeah, looks like it. Oh.
He doesn't want it. He's going for pit lane at the same lap as the GT3 car. And then he sees he's going to get held up on the entry behind the GT3 car and says, I'll do another lap. And then I think realizes he maybe doesn't have the fuel for another lap. I think there was 3 thought processes going on there, if I've read that correctly.
Yeah, and I think he wouldn't have wanted the same kind of situation as Marcus Deck faced earlier in the race, where he had to lock up on pit entry and dive in over the pit lane speed limit. Well, that pit stop for our leaders has promoted Corey McLemore and Johan Boyson to the podium positions for now, and McLemore and Boyson flipping the script there as McLemore goes for the lane. Boyson stays out. Big surprise.
Bailey didn't take a pit stop. He took a drive-through, so he might have sped on the way out of pit lane and then needed to take a penalty or something. The drama continues. I'm not sure what woes have befallen Christopher Bailey and the pit lane, but here comes Marcus Deck back into the race. There goes Connor Harrington around the outside of Cops, and they're going to be very close with 15 minutes to go.
Looking forward to seeing how this battle turns out. We're back into the fight that we saw at the start of the race between these two, except this time it's not for the lead. It's for one of the spots on the podium, as we see Aaron Ackles going in for his final pit stop. Everyone else going for one more stop here. Ackles and Plummer and Rossimano all together there at the back of the top 10 in GT, and Rossimano wins the fight out of pit lane. Meanwhile, Connor Harrington and Marcus Deck continuing to work their way through the GT field. And hearing, oh dear, it's going to be a post-race review for Marcus Deck for causing a collision. Something has happened there with Marcus Deck. Made contact with a GT, I think, that we didn't quite catch. We'll see if we can find a replay of that one, but either way, that could be a penalty hanging over Marcus Deck's head.
I think what we've seen as precedent from some of the other rounds is if it's a post-race review, it often ends up being grid penalty for the following round. I guess, post-race time can be added. Your result could get dropped, but I think at this point, for a post-race review, unless it's super egregious, you'd be more likely to be sent to the back of the grid for next round.
This is close here, coming up on Dakota Fripp again. The two prototypes of Deck and Harrington making it 3 wide down the hangar straight. And Deck going to try around the outside of Stowe here on Harrington. Harrington trying to push him towards the outside of the circuit. They make contact, but Deck continuing to squeeze Harrington to the inside. And that was quite the statement there from Connor Harrington. He's not afraid to get the elbows out here versus Marcus.
Yeah, interesting. The track starts bending to the right a little bit before the corner proper. So Harrington kind of goes straight, and Deck starts to follow the curve of the track, and they meet in the middle, not entirely by accident.
Well, they're still close through the final sector here, through the twisties of Priory, Brooklands and Luffield. That part of the track, of course, not used anymore. And this is where we rejoin where the current circuit is. Deck having a brief look up the inside of Luffield. And it's not really a passing corner, but it's a place where you can put yourself up the inside and maybe scare your rival into making a mistake. And you see the draft for Marcus
More dramas
Deck.
for Kostovich.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's gone from second back into fourth. Don't know if there was contact with his teammate. I don't know if John Bodefer was starting to press the issue among the twin full send cars there. He's gone for a bit of a half spin and lost quite a handful of time here, has Spencer Kostovich, who not long ago was, half a second away from the lead. Even less as they came into pit lane.
Yeah, that's a big shame for Spencer. He just got his right side wheels caught on the outside of Priory. You'll see in the bottom right corner exactly what happened to Spencer. And it was just a bit of understeer on the exit of the left-hander. And once you get on the brakes, well, it looks like he actually entered a bit narrow. And that sent him wide on the exit, gets on the brakes. But when you're on the grass and gravel, the car's like, no thank you, I'd rather not. And into the gravel trap, Spencer Kostovich went. That's a big shame for the guy who was challenging Dakota Fripp for the lead in the GT class.
It's almost like Cops, where just the far side of the curb is very, very bumpy, very low grip. He got just the wrong side of the curb, and Dusty, no grip there, sends him into the half spin, and then he ends up out in the gravel.
Well, there is Spencer now alone in terms of position. He's not facing any pressure from behind. Yes, that is one of the Quasar Lamborghinis, but that is not for position. As one of the Action Sim Sport prototypes found its way past him there as well. Andrew Berry coming into the pits meanwhile. The other Action Sim Sport LMP2 with Hayden Gober in the number 90, his teammate. And that's a very late stop there for Andrew Berry. And it looks like John Botefer has come out as one of the podium challengers in the GT class. He's kept it nice and consistent, has John. We haven't given him much airtime in this race, but he's kept it very consistent, and he stayed out of trouble, stayed away from the wrath of race control, stayed away from other cars as well, and it's paying off for him. Now he's put right behind Tristan Iglesias and could potentially take second here.
Might have saved a little bit in the middle stint of the race as well for John Bodefer, because the pit stop he's just had quite a bit quicker than Iglesias or Fripp, and definitely faster than Kostovich.
No. That's Marcus Deck around. Oh, that's a big shame there for our former race leader. Something happened to him there on the exit of Abbey. He's still in fourth place, not losing out to Andrew Berry. What exactly happened to him there? He was going for a move on the Genesis BMW of Daniel Towell, but just took a bit too much curb at the second part of Abbey, and that's what sent him around. Fortunately, he kept it out of the wall, so no damage for Marcus Deck, but man, he would not have wanted that right at the end.
Saying far side of these curbs, you don't want to get across there. This legacy version of Silverstone. It's also an unconventional way to try to go around the outside of someone in Abbey there. Maybe from the driver's seat it looked more more sensible. But from off-board, it was a dangerous place to put yourself. Hayden Gober on the lane for his second stop with 8 minutes to go left in the race.
And Adam Crane here, still in the lead for Satellite Racing. He is the only driver left in the prototype field to have only taken one stop. And his first stint lasted 26 laps, and he's on the 24th lap of this stint. With 7 minutes to go, that's something like 4, maybe 5 laps in the prototype with the pace that they've got. So who knows, we might expect Adam Crane in for a short little splash and dash right at the end, or he could have pulled off a fuel-saving masterclass here and made the one-stop work.
And remember, the lap count from the first stint doesn't include the full pace lap that they did as well. So if anything, that makes it slightly more possible he could get this to the end with a cough and a splutter, and definitely a lift here and there. Got plenty of time. Yeah, he's still 14 seconds ahead of Graham Sanders with, it's going to be 4 laps to go when he gets to the line, I think. So what, he could give away 3.5 seconds a lap in, fuel saving and waiting behind traffic and still bring a win home.
Well, this is convenient. I seem to have gotten a case of the hiccups right in the last 10 minutes of this race. So I do apologise if there are some short little breaks in my commentary. Tristan Iglesias and John Botifer still fighting with each other for second and third in GT, only 0.3 of a second between them. This has been a fantastic event for John Botifer and for Tristan Iglesias. Iglesias visiting the podium last round too.
Early in the morning to be drinking in Perth, but sure. Second and third are going to keep battling, and it's interesting to see Iglesias there moving around a little bit to pick up the slipstream off Adam Crane. I don't think it was going to help him a whole lot, but what is going to help him is that Botifer got on the far side of that curb on the exit of Stowe there, and I think hindered his drive off the corner, having 2 wheels in the grass.
Well, a nice narrow exit out of club, working out nicely for him. Narrower exit for Tristan Iglesias there, just up ahead. See how aggressive Botifer is on the turn in for Abbey. Not very. You see barely any steering input at all in that Lamborghini, and Botifer, I think, starting to build a reputation as one of those drivers who really takes care of his car, takes care of his tyres as well. It's very nice to watch him go around here, not even getting to 90 degrees of steering input through Brooklands, which is one of the tightest corners on the circuit.
Yeah, is there a steering rack or anything in these cars that is adjustable?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, just a very quick rack in the car then.
Seems that way. We're getting an Omologato replay down in the bottom right corner. Something happened here to Garrett Thompson, and I see a prototype coming up behind him. Could this mean something? Turns into Abbey. Oh, yeah, big pass there, and a bit too hard through the first part of Abbey. Caught the grass and got sent into the wall on the other side of the chicane there. Poor Garrett Thompson. He's had a tough one in these last few laps.
It's the same bump in the second apex of Abbey that Marcus Deck did, just with different results.
Yeah, oh, goodness me, this is close now between Botifer and Iglesias. They had a prototype for company, Graham Sanders running in second. And the full send Lamborghini now facing a lot of pressure from the Geodesic machine. They both got the same sort of style to their livery, all of those streaks and lines, but they're very different looking cars, very striking looking cars, and a very striking battle we're seeing in the dying minutes for second place in the GT class here at Silverstone. Loving this, and Wondering how much Botifer is going to dial up the aggression in the last couple of laps. They got another prototype coming up on them. That's Hayden Gober again in the number 90. Iglesias made a mistake. That's going to allow Botifer up on the inside, and Gober thinks, well, hang on a minute. These guys are battling. I'm just going to wait for a couple of seconds. And Botifer around the outside of Luffield. Could he take this here on Tristan Iglesias? Iglesias has the racing line. Botifer out in the marbles. They make contact side by side. Doesn't look like much damage between the two of them, but side by side again on the run up to Copse, and Iglesias is going to protect that position. Oh my goodness, John Botifer is really challenging here. He's going to get the run on the exit of Copse and try it through the S's. Take it easy, guys. Left a little bit of room on the outside, side by side contact again. Botifer on the inside of Iglesias just gives them the room. They barely avoid making contact again. This is such a hard fight for second.
This is on the edge of sportsmanship and decency here, leaning on each other a little bit in places, but there's just about 1.5 laps to go for these guys, moving around on the hanger straight. Why not? Botifer wants this, but I don't think Botifer wants this as badly as Iglesias seems to want to defend it. That's what it's come down to.
Yeah, it's very juicy, this battle. Very aggressive moves there from both drivers. Botifer, you see, going narrow on the exit of the Vale chicane to try and get the run out of club. And he's within draft range now of Tristan Iglesias. And this is one of the closest battles on the track. Botifer still not far up enough to go for a look into Abbey, but he'll be hoping that Iglesias makes another mistake through Priory like he did on the previous lap. Let's monitor this.
Adam Crane's taken the white flag. He's stayed out. He's trying to bring this one-stop strategy home as well.
Yeah, what a great drive from Adam Crane in the prototype class. I mean, we thought that we might see a different winner today, but we were thinking it was going to be Connor Harrington. It turns out Adam Crane, with the strategy masterclass, did what Marcus Deck did last round at the Nürburgring and made the one-stop strategy work. White flag for him coming down into Stowe, and it's going to be white flag for these GT guys. You see battling for second, Iglesias almost coming off the circuit on the exit of Copse, just keeping it in there in second. Now what will Botifer do down the hanger straight? This is going to be one of the prime passing opportunities. They're going to have another prototype for company with Connor Harrington there running third, and Botifer's going to have to let him go there, and sweeping through is Connor Harrington on these guys, and it's not going to result in a draft there for John Botifer. He's going to have to wait till later in the lap, but a very aggressive entry into Stowe. He was a bit later on the brakes and runs a bit wide in the middle of the corner. Stays within range of Iglesias though, but Adam Crane coming through the final corner. A fantastic drive from the Satellite Racing man. Made the one-stop strategy work, brings it home in P1. Adam Crane takes his first win of the season in the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Prototype win secured. It is going to be Dakota Fripp for the third race running in GT meanwhile. I mean, what a drive from Dakota again. It seems like he's just not bothered by whatever goes on behind him. Just eyes forward in that Vendaval Sim Racing Audi. Another fantastic victory for the Audi R8, but it's still on for second, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. Can John Botifer get this from Tristan Iglesias? One more corner to go, and he tries. He lunges into Luffield, but he's just not going to be able to get it done. He gave it a red-hot go. The battle almost turned sour between these two, but it is going to be Tristan Iglesias who takes second in the GT class. What a great way for that to end. Graham Sanders, meanwhile, taking second in prototype, and Connor Harrington holding on for third. Our pole sitter will have been hoping for a bit more from that one.
Tyson Meyer's out of fuel.
Oh dear. Bringing it into the
So he
pits
is.
on the final lap.
It's an interesting one. He's still definitely going to get that. Taking the checkered flag in the pit lane at Silverstone. What memory does that bring up? But he's still going to be ahead of Andrew Berry. It's legal this time. He didn't have a penalty.
Yeah, very true. Well, the battle is going to work out there in the favour of John Derrick there versus Aaron Ackles and the Quasar Lamborghini. And Derek going to come home to finish in the top 10 in GT. Fantastic stuff for
Mine's
him.
not going to get 5th place.
Oh, he's not.
Adjusted and has Andrew Berry in front of him. Has he come to a halt before the...
He has.
Box?
He's in the gravel trap.
Where is
What?
he?
Yeah, where is that on the track? I see a line going across the circuit. That's... Oh, no. Yeah, okay. So he actually came across the line there. And, That's odd. Did he just decide to go through the pits to preserve a bit more fuel and then conked out in the S's on the in-lap?
I've got one timing screen telling me Tyson Meyer crossed the line a minute behind the overall, and another one telling me he is a minute 35 behind. So I think 36 seconds has been applied post-race for not clearing a slowdown or something. Speeding on pit in on the way to the line. We were great detectives last round, spooked everyone, and now I know we're out of secrets.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll see what the next round brings, but Adam Crane celebrating there in the satellite racing prototype. A very well-earned and well-deserved victory for Mr. Crane. It'll be a great victory that he will be celebrating for quite some time, at least until we get to the next round of the championship. So, with racing concluded here at Silverstone, these are the final results in the prototype class. Adam Crane taking victory by 9.6 seconds from Graham Sanders. Connor Harrington coming across the line a further 20-something seconds back. Marcus Deck holds on for 4th place, but he could have taken that victory were it not for the speeding in pits penalty. Berry completing the top 5 and Tyson Meyer classified in 6th. Hayden Gober and Christopher Bailey a lap down, and the final finishers in our prototype class. Unfortunately, Jason Goddard and Randall McGrew were unable to make it to the finish.
Then, in the GT field, Dakota Fripp continues the spell and makes it 3 from 3. Tristan Iglesias, a robust defensive 2nd place from John Botifer, and trouble in the pit lane and then trouble on the track denied Spencer Kostovich the chance to attack Dakota Fripp for the win today. Corey McLemore for 5th. Johan Boyson brings the Tortuga BMW home in 6th. Then Bo Rigger, Anthony Rossimano, John Derrick, and Aaron Ackles completes the top 10 in GT.
Over the page, Zach Plummer coming home in 11th with Nicholas Hayes bringing his Team Tortuga BMW home in 12th. Daniel Towell, unfortunately, was racing quite well for in and around the top 10, but a couple of incidents for him putting paid to that. David Browning and Garrett Thompson rounding out the top 15, and they are among our final finishers in the GT class. Orson Mireles couldn't make it. Nick McLaughlin couldn't make it. Neither could Maxime Detilly. In fact, poor Maxime did not even take the start. So that's a big shame there for one of the fast drivers in this series in that McLaren, Maxime Detilly. Well, it is time to move through into post-race driver interviews. Adam Crane is going to join us first up. Thank you very much for joining us, Adam Crane, and congratulations on your victory. Must feel good coming home with that one stop. You managed to pull it off.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, but tough. I sort of gamed it out before the session to, maybe it could work. And it just so happened that with, I guess, Marcus and Connor having some issues, that the competition, who I would have otherwise had to fight for P1, P2, that sort of area, ended up having some issues and sort of gifted me the win.
Well, how was the traffic out there for starters? Because Silverstone, a track that lends itself pretty well to multi-class racing with a few passing opportunities, but those fast corners can really stymie you in the prototypes if you come up on traffic at the wrong time.
Yeah, for sure. Traffic for me wasn't actually that bad, just because I was actually pretty happy to see some traffic because it gave me a good opportunity to fuel save. Obviously, if I were trying to push and make lap time, then having GTs through any one of the more technical complexes would sort of suck the lap time, which wouldn't be good. But in my position, very happy to see any GT car and able to save a little bit of fuel.
Well, coming home with a victory and certainly helps your championship standing. So Indianapolis is our next round, a very similar circuit to Silverstone here. A lot of high speed and a lot of slipstreaming available. The fuel saving might come into account there too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty comfortable with Indy Road just because my experience at the IndyCar. So definitely a track that I'll be comfortable at, as opposed to Silverstone Legacy, which was kind of a curveball. But hey, it worked out on my end, so I'm pretty pleased.
Indeed. And before we let you go, Adam, is there anyone that you'd like to thank from your crew at Satellite Racing?
Obviously, Sai and Alex for helping with the setup, and beyond that, everyone at Satellite themselves. Want to thank, obviously, you guys for putting on a great broadcast, and Geo for putting on a great league. And thanks to my partner, I know I made a little bit too much noise there. Might have had a big yelp once I crossed the line, so sorry to her, and hi to my parents.
I'm pretty sure your partner's going to forgive you for that one, Adam. Congratulations again, and hello to Adam's parents if they are tuned in. Certainly a great drive from your son there. That's Adam Crane from Satellite Racing. The next driver that we're going to interview, if he is indeed with us, Dakota Fripp. We'll see if he is aware that he is in the box. He is indeed. David, time to have a talk to our GT winner for the third race running.
Yep, exactly. 3 from 3. And I feel like that doesn't tell the whole story of today's race, though, because it really looked like for a part there, Spencer Kostovich had the pace on you.
Yeah, he had great pace. It seemed like we were just kind of trading lap for lap for a good while there. Sometimes he'd run into bad traffic, sometimes I'd run into bad traffic, and he would catch up or we would gap, but it stayed within, I say, from 3 seconds, and then it cut down to like a second and a half, 2 seconds for a long part of the race there. So yeah, he definitely had a great race, great pace there.
A confirmed 2-stop strategy, changed it up a little bit, but gave you a little more room to make errors potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I found it easier doing it this way, honestly, than just pushing the whole time. Made it easier to actually not make errors for me because I think I was making more, well, not mistakes, but having to kind of figure out where to save fuel and how to save fuel well. And if you're saving, you fuel, you need to brake a little bit later. Maybe sometimes I'd brake too late or too early. So I definitely, was making a lot less mistakes just pushing the whole time. So yeah, I enjoyed that for sure.
Twice on a pit lane. It's pretty fast pit lane here, but we did see a few people struggle with the pit in, and where that was cutting across the grass and also with the traffic there. Any dramas on your way in or out of pit lane?
I had actually in the last stop, I had just missed my box. So I thought I lost the lead right there because Spencer was only like a second and a half behind me, but I guess he ran into some sort of issues on his own, which dropped him further back. So yeah, I guess I was lucky. I was lucky with that. Got away with that mistake.
Next round at Indianapolis road course. How optimistic are you for 4 from 4, and how hard are you going to maybe work for that goal?
So same sort of process, just practice with as much time as I have, what I can for the next round. Same sort of deal. I feel pretty strong at that track because I've driven it before in the Audi. So I did some of the testing that I did to find out which car I wanted to choose at Indy. So yeah, I feel pretty confident for that track for sure. Yeah.
Congratulations on the hat trick, and I'll give you the chance to thank who you want to thank.
Awesome. All right. I'd like to thank Vendaval, Sim Racing. I'd like to thank SimiCube and Draw Once, also Valco, for all their support. So, and then of course, thank you to you guys for the stream, and Geodesic for the hosting the series, and Omologato. So, yeah, thank you guys.
See you at Indy.
All right.
That is Dakota Fripp there for Vendaval Sim Racing. Winner in the GT class, and we're going to go to third in prototype here. Connor Harrington in the number 44. Man, Connor, with that pole position, it looked like you were one of the favorites to win the battle that you were having with Marcus Deck was spellbinding, but unfortunately that contact with Zach Plummer at Stowe put paid to it. What was that contact like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it's all on me. I want to apologize to Zach. I feel bad about that for ruining his race like that. We knew it was real close between Graham and I as far as the leaders of the guys that were going to try to make 2 stops. And so we kind of figured it was really critical to get through the traffic as fast as possible, but because we knew the margins were going to be really fine there at the end of the second pit stop, and I just misjudged it. I figured he was going to leave the inside open. I tried to shade to the right, and he turned in, and the closing rate is just so great with the LMP2 compared to the GT3. Once he's decided to turn in, there's nothing I can do but hit him in the back, and that's my fault. I was kind of hoping that I would have caught a break there and just didn't. So again, apologies to Zach. I feel bad.
Well, on a more positive note, you certainly had the pace to win today. David was doing his usual detective work, listening into your gear ratios. You were using the shorter gear ratios on the prototype in contrast to just about everyone else. And what was your reasoning for that? Did you think that were you going for a higher downforce setup? Is that why?
Yeah, we had pretty much as much downforce as you can put on this thing cranked into it. If we hadn't qualified on pole, we probably would have put the normal gear stack into it just so we could be a little bit more racy in the draft. But since we qualified on pole, we were kind of hoping that if we could stay in front, that gear stack would be a little bit more suited to not needing the extra RPMs for the slipstream. Marcus unfortunately got around us after a couple laps, but all in all, I mean, the car drove fantastic. We got a great setup from TQ Engineering, and it drove really well. We were probably the fastest car in the first sector with all the downforce we had on it. That kind of helped us keep in front of everybody, at least in race pace, because we were able to gap everybody in the first sector.
Yeah, certainly very good on pace in that first sector. Well, still holding on for a podium in the prototype class. Surely this win is going to come for you sooner than later.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Marcus is extremely quick, and so is Graham and Tyson and Adam. So it's a pretty good battle up there for the top 5. I think any one of us can pull out a win at any time. So when the opportunities come, you do have to kind of take those chances, which I'm a little disappointed about, but a good comeback drive for P3.
Certainly. And from your spot on the podium, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody at Private Label and Ethica Clothing. Omologato puts on a great series. Everybody at Geodesic, everybody here at SimSpeed TV. We're looking forward to Indianapolis in a couple of weeks.
As we are. That's Connor Harrington there in the number 44, third place in the prototype class. And our final driver interview of the night, David, you're with John Botifer from Geodesic Racing.
Hey guys. Welcome to the commentary booth, John. Quite a bit of back and forth towards the end of the race there between yourself and Tristan Iglesias. From your seat, was it all fair?
Yeah, I mean, it was just hard racing. I think I know him and I have a little bit of a network issue, and I could see him on my screen kind of netcode a little bit on that first contact. The second one was a little rougher. I thought I gave him enough room, but overall it was just good hard racing, I think.
3 stints to the race, 3, sort of legs to it. Seems like you might have saved the fuel a little bit more early goings because you had a really ripping time on that final pit stop, and that really then put you into contention, cat amongst the pigeons with the full send guys towards the end.
Yeah, first stint I was just trying to stretch the fuel the extra lap, and I was able to go further than the 3 guys in front. And then second stint I was just plugging away a little bit on Tristan, maybe a 10th or 2 a lap, and then I was kind of surprised how close I came out behind them on that last stop, but still was P4, and then Spencer had a little mistake, which let us, Tristan and I, kind of battle for P2. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And what about the dreaded B word in GT3? An Audi takes the win, Lamborghini's closely following. Has the BMW faded away a little bit, or is this just not its track? What do you think is the read on the situation?
Well, Dakota's got, I mean, his pace is different than everybody else. The BMWs, I think, yeah, I would say this track probably doesn't favor them, but we'll see going forward. I think the guys do a good job of trying to make the BOP as fair as possible. So,
locked into the Lamborghini, do you think it can repeat the podium performance at Indy?
Yeah, I like Indy a lot. It's a fun track. I think the BMW will be much better there. I think the long straightaway and oval portion of the track kind of favors it. So we'll see. It should be fun.
We look forward to seeing you then.
Yep, thanks, guys.
John Botifer there for Geodesic Racing, third place in GT. Well, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight, David. What a round once again. I'm very impressed by Adam Crane taking the victory in prototype, but Dakota Fripp seems unstoppable in GT right now.
Well, that's the thing. You look at the results sheet from today and you say Dakota Fripp unstoppable in the GT class, but really you could have seen a way that today could have gone where Spencer Kostovich stood on the top step of the podium and ended the streak there, because the pace was very, very good. It was just cleanly executing it all. So that gives me a lot of hope for what we might see in rounds to come if those guys from Full Send Racing can continue to, bother around the podium and definitely have that sort of speed that comes on strong later in the races.
Well, we'll find out whether that works out next round here at Indianapolis Road Course, and the banked final turn certainly going to make for some interesting inter-class passing moves. You'll be able to catch that, of course, on the 18th of February here on SimSpeed TV. Before we go, we want to give a big thanks to Geodesic Racing for putting this whole thing on. Once again, it was a great show put on by all of the drivers today. And a big thanks to Omologato for your support of this series. Remember the code SPEED2021 at the Omologato store. If you've been eyeing off one of those British racing green watches that we showed at the start of the broadcast, make sure to use that code at checkout and you'll get a bonus silicone band. Thank you to Omologato. And a big thanks to VRS as well, our replay sponsor here at SimSpeed TV. I'm Reese Gardner. David Haynes joined me in the commentary box today, and Jay Kennedy making everything happen behind the scenes, controlling the cameras, handling the whole streaming shebang. We end on that beautiful British racing green watch. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, bye for now, but certainly not forever. We'll see you in a couple weeks' time at Indianapolis for the next round of the Geodesic Omologato Championship.
This is fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top here!
Oh my god!
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!